Hello and welcome to this Spacewalkers live session that I will have the pleasure to present today. I am Fabrice Lieuvin, PLM of the core fixed switches for the switching BU of ALE Network Division. Here is the agenda for this session. First, I'll start by an overview of the current OmniSwitch X900 portfolio and the transition history to this new generation of core and data center switching platforms. Then, I'll discuss how to transition or update from the old generation to the new one. And I will review the hardware and software differences between the old and the new generation of the main key features and differentiator offered by this new design. Then, I will go quickly through a set of slides presenting in details every 6900 models with some of key specification. And I will close with some key takeaways. Let's begin. The new generation of 100 gig top-of-rack switches are built for data center and campus networks. The new 6900 switches enable customers to design a unified data center and campus network fabric managed by a single pane of glass, which is OmniVista next generation. We have key features to simplify and reduce network operations with secure virtualization and built-in automation. Our network fabric is based on SPB, which combine both data plane and control plane protocols. Shortest path bridging is the most recent and advanced fabric protocol that replaces spanning tree, provide a very fast network convergence for bump traffic, enabling the customers to design data center cloud architectures or fully mesh fabric, scaling up to 1,000 nodes with hundreds of services based on virtualization and security segmentation. With SPB, the fabric can span from the top of rack to the edge of the campus network. And you can simply create a set of network profiles that are automatically provisioned and mapped to services on the entire fabric. IT managers can fully leverage the virtualization capabilities of the fabric at the layer 2 and logical layer with micro-segmentation and granular security rules. OmniVista can manage the network services and provides a set of tools to create virtualization and security policies for the entire fabric. Every model shares the same high-performance ASIC with non-blocking wire rate switching, routing, and filtering throughput. The product range starts with the X24 10 gig ports with 200 gig ports up to the C32E high-density 100 gig platforms. For the top of rack, we also have high-density 10 gig and 25 gig switches with the X48 and V48 models. While moving to the next generation of hardware, we continue to push our key differentiating values such as virtual chassis, universal network profiles, combined with one of the broadest set of L2 and L3 protocols like ERP, SPB, VXLAN, L2GRE, and all the IPv4 and IPv6 protocols. In 2023, we plan to deliver more with the addition of MPLS and EVPN in order to ease the integration of our fabric with legacy networks supporting MPLS and VXLAN EVPN only. The refresh of the entire 6900 family has been done over 2 years. We started with the release 87R1, introducing the X48C6 and T48C6 that replaced the X40 and T40. Then we introduced the X48E, which is a specific model supporting MACsec encryption on all ports, and later in 2021, we launched the V72 replacement with the V48. Beginning of January this year, we have introduced the T32E, which is the replacement of T32. And as I said already, in October, we will issue the last member of the refreshed family, the X24 and T24, to replace the old X20 and T20. Please note that since the introduction of the first new X48 and T48, we have a new marketing and ordering part numbers. The product reference or name still follow the same nomenclatures. OS 6900 as family name, then a dash, followed by the model number with port type and numbers, plus optionally the D letter at the end for those with DC power supply. It's due to our catalog system that limits the maximum number of characters to be used for the reference and description fields. We had to adapt, and that is the reason why the new models are identified in our price list with shorter references. For example, the OS16900-X48C6 is now orderable with the reference OS16900-X48. There is no more dash or hyphen, nor the C6 digits at the end. It is the same for the entire family. OS16900-V48C8 has a marketing orderable number, which is now OS16900 V48, and so on. Please refer to the datasheet orderable items section that shows corresponding ordering and model numbers in the item description. How to transition to the new generations? Over the last few months, we received a lot of questions, and especially from customers who have been concerned by some limitation of the virtual chassis feature. The virtual chassis is one of our key features that differentiate us with other vendors that do not support it. In enterprise DC and core network, VC simplified the deployment of a fabric with full redundancy of the layer 2 or physical connections and the layer 3 IP or logical connectivity. Therefore, the new generation must support the virtual chassis. It's a must. On the left-hand side, you see the old 6900 models supporting VC and mixed VC. Any model can be mixed with another one in the same VC as shown here in the light orange box. You can see that the V72 and V32 first generation of 100 gig port switch both were not able to mix with the older models in a single VC. On the right hand side, you have the new models of 6900 that support the virtual chassis and mix VC between each other and with the V72 and V32. But as you can see here, we cannot mix the old model with the new model in the same virtual chassis. In a single virtual chassis, you can go up to 6 units. That's still the same limit with the new 6900 models. So what does it mean in terms of a transition? If a customer has a virtual chassis made of old 6900 and he wants to replace a faulty switch, then he must replace all members of the virtual chassis at once or split the virtual chassis into smaller virtual chassis if possible. When a customer runs SPB, the impact of splitting a virtual chassis will have almost no impact on the level of redundancy. It will create more logical switches to manage, but the resiliency will be maintained by the possibility to mesh all nodes together without the complexity of configuring it and play with the spanning tree protocols to avoid a network loop. The other limitation that we have, and it will continue for some more time, is with the X48E. The MaxSec model doesn't support virtual chassis right now. It will support it, but we have issue with the MaxSec hardware. We must redevelop the entire VC software code because of the specific file used for encryption that are not there on the other 6900 models. Here, I want to go through the feature differences between the old hardware family and the new one. Let's start with some limitation of the newer family. The first one is about the support of 1 gig base T on X24 and X48 models. Those new generation of 6900 X24 and X40 10 gigs and 100 gig switch do not support the use of 1 gig base T transceivers. The former X20 and X40 platform were able to accept 1 gig transceivers, specifically base T transceivers, because we had dedicated PHY chipset per port. The new X24 and X48 don't have PHYs, dedicated PHYs per port. The PHYs are now integrated with the main ASICs, which doesn't accept SFP 1 gig T. If you want 1 gig base T links, then you can use a 10 gig base T transceivers and manually set the speed to 1 gig. Please note that you still have a limitation of the number of 10 gig base T transceivers you can insert in X48 or X24 due to the extra heat and power consumption of the copper transceivers. So I think it's the only limitation we can see on this slide. All the other features are the same except that the newer models come by default with a dual power supply. With the older one, you were obliged to purchase a backup power supply to have a full redundant switch. So the price of the old models mentioned on the bottom of the slide include the backup power supply to have a fair comparison with the newer models. You have the EOS date of old models there. The last two switches that are not EOS yet are the V72 and T32, but it is planned for the end of September or maybe end of October. On this slide, you can see the software features parity between the old and new model, except the one that we dropped because they are not in use anymore, like OpenFlow and now OVSDB. Although some customers may still use some of those protocols, that's why you can see that, for example, SLB server load balancing is planned to come. We have just added Harmon that some customers still use to monitor their network usage. Some protocols or features are performed on the ASIC level, so we have to redevelop AOS to run on the new hardware as well as the test and validation plans. We just added the private VLAN that wasn't available at the first release of the new family because it is performed by the ASIC, and we didn't have enough resources to release it with the previous AOS releases. Same with the QoS features. As QoS use hardware resources, the new platform is more capable, but we have to prioritize which QoS features will be delivered first and in which AOS release. The new chipset support for new QoS capabilities that we already leverage, like the custom QSP profiles, which can replace the older profiles 3, 4, and 5. In data center deployment, in the past we had some customers deploying converged network with switches supporting SAN and LAN interfaces with gateway functions and storage vendor providing CNA converged network adapters requiring Ethernet to be lossless and with strict QoS policy based on the standard such as DCB, ETS, and PFC. We don't see much of our customers requesting such DCBX protocols anymore, hence we didn't prioritize it for the initial release of the new 1600 hardware. Though we see many enterprise data centers deploying cloud applications based on full virtualization of compute and storage, deploying applications on high-performance host clusters. Virtual machine or application containers can run in parallel in many hosts, and the network must provide a lossless high-bandwidth connection between the compute, the memory, and the data. And most of the virtualization vendors support the capabilities to build and run clusters in hybrid and private cloud architectures, which requires the networks to support protocols like RoCE, RDMA over Converged Ethernet. The recent evolution, RoCE V2, is now running on IP, and therefore it uses IPQoS control protocols to prioritize the traffic and ensure an end-to-end congestion control with like ECN of the path between the source and destination. RoCE V2 will be done with AOS 8.9R3. That should be released in the beginning of 2023. Alright, what about VXLAN? VXLAN on layer 2 has been added to the release 88R1. It gives the ability to use the 1600 as a hardware VTEP and also as a gateway to connect legacy hosts with the virtualization domain. Then we plan to bring Metro features like the protocol 1588 V2 end-to-end transparent clock, as we have many customers requesting it. It's going to be delivered on a future release, but for the moment we still don't know which one. We are working on evaluating and planning this effort because many large customers bought our new 1600 with the expectation to run 1588 V2. Based on available resources, we will do it as soon as possible. Well, here is the list of some of new added value features. Now we have the X48E, a dedicated model with MACsec on all ports. On the software side, we now have learned port security over SPB, and we also increased the SPB network scalability. Now it supports up to 128 adjacencies with up to 1,000 nodes. One of the new ASIC's key capabilities is inline routing. Instead of using front panel ports to route the traffic between the layer 2 and IP layer, you can use the ASIC's virtual port and keep all user interface available. Since the release 88R1, you can now deploy an automated network fabric based on SPBM with IPVPN Lite and full IPVPN services on top. In the near future, we plan to enhance inline routing functions with the ability to have any-to-any network services routing on internal virtual port, of course. So, for example, routing or switching the traffic from VXLAN to SPB or any other service on the same SAP port, that will simplify your deployment of our 16900 within an existing network or another network that is not capable of running SPB. We added hybrid NNI mode to extend VLAN type supported, which is an extension of the type of traffic, untag and tag, you can run concurrently on a network port. And with the release 89R3, we will have a new type of port, the hybrid access port, that will combine hybrid SAP and bridging ports. As I said already, Rocky V2 is planned for a future release. We target 89R3 if we can, and later we will bring EVPN and the distributed access gateway. MPLS is already in development, and we plan the first release on the 6860N by Q4 this year, and it might be released on the new 6900 later in 2023. The next part of the presentation covers the details of each model. Here is the V48. It's going to be the best seller of our 16900 family because first, the market demand for 25 gig top-of-rack switches is rising. IT managers must upgrade their DC network with 25 gig at access and 100 gig uplinks to the spine switches. The difference between the former V72 and the V48 are based on first, the ASIC which is now capable of inline routing, which wasn't the case with the V72 hardware. The switching capacity is similar, but the V48 has 800 gig ports instead of 6 on the V72. We launched a specific model, the X48E, to offer full-speed encryption based on MACsec standard on all ports. Once again, the X48E does not support the virtual chassis function. Today, it is a standalone switch. As we have many customers expecting it, it's a top priority for our engineering team, but a real challenge to develop the VC feature running on MACsec switch at the same time. The X48E will support the virtual chassis in a future release, probably by the second half of 2023. As you can see here, the switch offers 40 ports at 1 10 gig, 8 at 25 gig, and 4 ports at 100 gig. The 41 10 gig ports support both copper and fiber transceivers. The 8 SFP28 ports support 1 10 gig copper and fiber transceivers and 25 gig too. Then the 400 gig ports support 40 100 gig speed only. The C32E is similar to the C32, but runs the same ASICs as other new 16900s, enabling full inline routing and soon new protocol such as MPLS and EVPN. It provides 32 100 gig ports that can be split into 4 10 gig, 4 25 gig for a total of up to 128 10 25 gig ports. It is the perfect spine switch with non-blocking ports and up to 6.4 terabit per second of switching capacity. It is interesting to note that in data center networks, the standard network design is based on spine and leaf architectures, where the spine switch is just here to interconnect all top of racks together with redundant links. With our intelligent fabric, IFAB, based on SPBM, we can also link top of racks directly together, creating a mesh topology. SPB, as control plane, will always create the shortest path between the source and destination. That will reduce the number of hops and avoid loops too. The T32E, like other new 6900, support virtual chassis with up to 6 units in the single VC. It's a great advantage for many customers who can simply put together 2 switches to have a full hardware redundancy of a spine with multiple active links all together to all top-of-rack switches. As top-of-rack switches, we will soon launch the 24-port version of the T48. The new T24 and X24 on next slide share the same hardware as the T48 and the X48. They are a perfect fit for a top-of-rack switch for up to 12 hosts with dual connections, and you can put two T24 in a VC for a full network redundancy with all active links at the same time. The X24 model is similar to the T24, but often used as a small core or aggregation node on a campus network. It provides up to 24 fiber ports with 200 gig uplinks that can be used as virtual fabric link to interconnect multiple switches together in a virtual chassis. On the next 2 slides, you can read the detail of the 48 port version of the 6900 T48 and X48 C6 and bestseller of the family today. The T48 is the perfect top-of-rack with multiple 100 gig uplinks, and the X48 is mostly for core networks, even if we see more and more fiber interfaces on server NICs. Let's now close with some key takeaways. First takeaway, in 2 years, we launched 7 new 100 gig OmniSwitch 6900 that share the same switching ASIC in order to harmonize all the features across the entire family. We also introduced a year ago the MACsec model X48E to complete our solutions for the defense and government market. Second takeaway, in October we will finish the portfolio transition with the launch of the new OS 6900 X24 and T24. They will be released with the AOS 89R1 release at almost the same price as the former X20 and T20 were. Third takeaway, as I said, the new portfolio runs on the latest generation of chipset that enable new features such as inline routing and service inline routing. In the near future, we will add new protocols such as MPLS and EVPN for better and easier integration with multi-vendor cloud and virtualization networks. Thanks for watching this presentation. Keep enjoying your Spacewalker Live event. I'm looking forward to interacting with you on this and other topics on the Spacewalker platform. Take care and see you soon.